Let me start with a simple question. What if I told you that one tiny habit, something that takes about 1 minute, has been shown in large-scale studies to significantly reduce your risk of heart disease, diabetes, cognitive decline, and even premature death? Not a supplement, not an expensive therapy, not a complicated workout routine, just a 1 minute snack you can do almost anywhere, backed by real human data. Most people think longevity comes from big, dramatic lifestyle overhauls, marathon training, extreme diets, biohacking routines that take hours a day. But when you actually look at the strongest data we have, epidemiological studies, randomized trials, and mechanistic research, a very different picture emerges. Small, repeated stressors applied to the body in short bursts can produce outsized benefits. This is something we see over and over again in biology. Short exposures to stress, followed by recovery, activate powerful protective pathways in the body. And today, I want to focus on one of the most overlooked examples of this principle, a 1 minute movement snack that activates some of the most important longevity pathways we know of. This is in theory. This comes from studies following tens of thousands of people over many years. Researchers noticed something surprising. People who performed very brief bouts of intense physical activity, even as little as 1 minute at a time, had dramatically lower mortality risk compared to people who were completely sedentary. In fact, one study published in a major medical journal found that people who did short bursts of vigorous activity scattered throughout the day had up to a 40% lower risk of all-cause mortality. That's death from any cause, heart disease, cancer, everything. And here's the key point. These people were not exercising in the traditional sense. They weren't going to the gym. They weren't doing structured workouts. They were simply inserting tiny spikes of intensity into their daily lives. So what exactly is this 1 minute snack? It's a short burst of vigorous movement that elevates your heart rate quickly. Something like climbing stairs briskly, doing bodyweight squats, fast-paced cycling, or even marching in place with high knees. The specific movement matters far less than the intensity. The goal is to push your body just enough to signal adaptation. From a biological perspective, what's happening during that 1 minute is fascinating. When you suddenly increase energy demand, your muscles activate AMP, activated protein kinase, or AMPK. This is a key energy sensor in the body. AMPK tells your cells, we're low on energy. We need to become more efficient. When AMPK is activated, it improves insulin sensitivity, increases glucose uptake into muscles, and stimulates mitochondrial biogenesis, essentially telling your cells to make more and better mitochondria. Mitochondria are strongly associated with longevity and metabolic health. At the same time, you're increasing blood flow, improving endothelial function, and triggering the release of myokines. These are signaling molecules released by muscles that communicate with the brain, the immune system, and even fat tissue. Some myokines reduce inflammation, others support brain health and neuroplasticity. And this is where the 1 minute becomes so powerful, because you don't need a long workout to trigger these pathways, and the body responds to intensity, not duration. A short, hard signal can be enough to flip the switch. Another reason this matters is adherence. Most people fail to exercise consistently, not because they don't know it's important, but because they think it requires too much time. So when you reduce the barrier to 1 minute, the psychology changes completely. 1 minute feels doable, even on your busiest days. And here's something else. The data shows these short movement snacks don't just improve physical health, they're associated with better cognitive outcomes, improved blood flow to the brain, increased levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, which supports learning and memory. This is especially important as we age. So as we go deeper into this topic, I want you to keep one idea in mind. Longevity is not about perfection. It's about consistency. And sometimes the smallest habits, repeated over years, have the biggest impact on how long and how well you live. To really understand why these 1 minute movement snacks are so powerful, we need to look at how the human body evolved. For most of human history, physical activity didn't happen in long scheduled blocks. Our ancestors weren't doing 60-minute workouts. Movement happened in short, intense bursts, sprinting, climbing, lifting, carrying, reacting. Then there were long periods of rest. And our biology is still wired for that pattern. When researchers compare continuous moderate exercise to short bursts of vigorous activity, something interesting shows up again and again. Vigorous activity produces disproportionately large benefits relative to the time invested. This is especially true for cardiovascular health and metabolic function. One of the most important predictors of lifespan is cardiorespiratory fitness, often measured as VO2 max. VO2 max reflects how efficiently your body can deliver and use oxygen. And higher VO2 max is strongly associated with lower risk of death from all causes. And here's the key point. Short bursts of high-intensity movement are one of the fastest ways to improve VO2 max. Even a few minutes per day, broken into very small chunks, can create meaningful improvements. That's because intensity challenges the heart and lungs in a way that slow, steady movement does not. Another major factor is insulin sensitivity. As we age, many people become insulin resistant without realizing it. Blood sugar stays elevated longer after meals, leading to chronic inflammation, vascular damage, and increased risk of type 2 diabetes and Alzheimer's disease. Short bursts of intense movement rapidly pull glucose out of the bloodstream and into muscle cells independent of insulin. This happens through the translocation of GLUT4 transporters to the cell membrane. In simple terms, your muscles act like a sponge for glucose during and after these movement snacks. That means even if you sit for much of the day, inserting a 1-minute burst of activity before or after meals can significantly blunt blood sugar spikes. So over years, that adds up to less glycation damage, healthier blood vessels, and better brain aging. Then there's mitochondrial health. Mitochondria aren't static. They respond to demand. When you challenge your muscles with brief, intense activity, you activate signaling pathways like PGC1A. This drives mitochondrial biogenesis, the creation of new mitochondria, and improves the function of existing ones. More mitochondria means better energy production, less oxidative stress, and greater resilience against age-related decline. This is one reason physically active people tend to maintain independence and vitality much later into life. Now let's talk about inflammation, because chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the hallmarks of aging. Short bursts of exercise trigger an acute inflammatory response, but this is followed by a powerful anti-inflammatory rebound over time. This trains the immune system to regulate itself more effectively. Muscle contractions release anti-inflammatory myokines like IL-6 in a context that reduces rather than increases systemic inflammation. This is very different from inflammation caused by poor diet, stress, or sleep deprivation. What's also fascinating is how quickly these benefits begin. Studies show improvements in insulin sensitivity and vascular function within days of starting short bouts of vigorous movement. You don't need months to see changes. The body responds rapidly when the signal is strong. And importantly, this doesn't require exhaustion or pain. We're not talking about pushing to failure. We're talking about elevating your heart rate and breathing for about a minute, then allowing recovery. That recovery phase is just as important because it's when adaptation happens from a longevity perspective. This pattern mimics hormesis, the idea that small doses of stress make the system stronger. Heat exposure, cold exposure, fasting, and exercise all work through similar mechanisms. Movement snacks are simply one of the most accessible forms of hormesis available. Now let's get very practical, because this is where most people either overcomplicate things or miss the point entirely. A true 1-minute movement snack is not about perfection, and it's not about doing some special magical exercise. It's about intensity relative to your current fitness level. The simplest way to define it is this. For about 1 minute, your breathing becomes noticeably faster. Your heart rate rises, and holding a full conversation would be difficult. You're not gasping for air, but you're clearly working. That's it. For one person, that might mean briskly climbing a flight of stairs. For another, it might be bodyweight squats, fast step-ups, or a short burst on a stationary bike. for someone older or just getting started. It could be marching in place with high knees or doing repeated sit-to-stands from a chair at a fast pace. The body doesn't care what the movement looks like. What it cares about is the signal. A helpful way to think about this is heart rate reserve. You don't need to measure it precisely, but subjectively, you should feel like you're at about a 7 or 8 out of 10. In effort, challenging, but controlled, safe, but stimulating. And this is where consistency becomes easy because it's only 1 minute. You can layer these snacks into your day without needing motivation or special clothing. You can do one before breakfast, one before lunch, one mid-afternoon, one in the evening. Even 2 or 3 per day can have a profound effect over time. Research suggests that accumulating as little as 3 to 5 minutes of vigorous activity per day, even when broken into very short bouts, is associated with significant reductions in mortality risk. That's a shockingly small investment for such a large return. Timing also matters, especially for metabolic health. Doing a 1-minute movement snack shortly before or after meals can dramatically reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes. This is particularly relevant for people with prediabetes, insulin resistance, or a family history of metabolic disease. From a mechanistic standpoint, contracting muscles act as a glucose sink. They pull glucose out of the bloodstream and store it as glycogen. This reduces oxidative stress and glycation damage that would otherwise accumulate in tissues like blood, vessels, and nerves. Another powerful strategy is to use movement snacks to break up prolonged sitting. Sitting for hours at a time is associated with increased cardiovascular risk, even in people who exercise regularly. A 1-minute burst of movement every hour or two can partially reverse the negative vascular effects of prolonged sitting. What's happening here is improved endothelial function. Blood vessels respond to changes in shear stress, which increases when blood flow rises during movement. This stimulates nitric oxide production, improving vascular elasticity and blood pressure regulation. There's also a neurological component. Brief bouts of movement increase norepinephrine and dopamine, which enhance alertness and focus. Many people report improved energy and mood after just 1 minute of movement, especially during the afternoon energy dip. Now let's address a common concern: safety. For most people, especially those who are deconditioned, the idea of vigorous movement sounds intimidating. The key is relative intensity. Vigorous does not mean reckless. It means appropriate challenge. If you have known cardiovascular disease, joint issues, or other medical conditions, the intensity can be scaled faster. Walking, gentle stair climbing, or chair-based movements can still provide a meaningful signal when done with intent. And here's something important: you do not need to sweat for this to work. Sweating is a thermoregulatory response, not a marker of effectiveness. What matters is heart rate, muscle contraction, and effort. Over time, your fitness will improve, and that same 1-minute snack will feel easier. When that happens, you simply increase the intensity, slightly more speed, more resistance, a steeper incline. The stimulus evolves as you adapt. This is how resilience is built. One of the most important reasons this 1-minute movement snack matters as we age is its impact on muscle. After about the age of 30, we begin to lose muscle mass and strength at a slow but steady rate. This process, known as sarcopenia, accelerates with inactivity and is one of the strongest predictors of frailty, loss of independence, and even mortality. Muscle is not just for movement. It's a metabolic organ. It plays a critical role in glucose regulation, immune function, and hormone signaling. People with more functional muscle mass tend to have better metabolic health, stronger bones, and greater resilience to illness. Short bursts of intense movement provide a powerful signal to preserve muscle even when total exercise volume is low. Fast, forceful contractions recruit higher threshold motor units, including fast-twitch muscle fibers. These fibers are the ones most prone to age-related decline, and they are rarely activated during slow, casual movements. By repeatedly activating these fibers, even for just 1 minute at a time, You send a message to the nervous system and muscles that they are still needed. This helps maintain strength, power, and coordination qualities that are essential for preventing falls and maintaining mobility later in life. There's also a strong connection between muscle and brain health. Contracting muscles release myokines that cross the blood-brain barrier and influence neuroplasticity. One of the most studied is brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. BDNF supports the growth and survival of neurons and is critical for learning and memory. Brief bouts of vigorous movement have been shown to increase BDNF levels, sometimes more effectively than longer, moderate intensity exercise. This may help explain why physically active individuals have a lower risk of cognitive decline and dementia. Another key factor is cerebral blood flow. Short bursts of activity increase heart rate and blood pressure transiently, which improves perfusion to the brain. Over time, this supports vascular health in the brain, reducing the risk of small vessel disease, a major contributor to age-related cognitive impairment. Movement snacks also interact with stress physiology. Acute exercise increases cortisol temporarily, but regular exposure improves the body's ability to regulate stress hormones. This results in a more resilient hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which is associated with better mood, sleep, and immune function. Sleep itself is another important piece of the longevity puzzle. People who engage in regular physical activity, even in small amounts, tend to have better sleep quality. Short bursts of movement earlier in the day can help reinforce circadian rhythms, making it easier to fall asleep and stay asleep at night. What's particularly exciting is that these benefits are accessible even to people who believe it's too late to make a difference. Studies consistently show that improvements in strength, insulin sensitivity, and cardiovascular function can occur well into older age when appropriate movement is introduced. This challenges the idea that you need decades of training to benefit from exercise. The body remains adaptable throughout life. It just needs the right signal. And because these movement snacks are brief, they're easier to sustain long term. Sustainability is everything when it comes to longevity. The best intervention is the one you actually do day after day, year after year, rather than relying on willpower. These 1-minute habits become part of your identity. You start to see movement not as a task, but as a tool, something you use to feel better, think more clearly, and support your long-term health. Now that we've explored the science and the physiological benefits of 1-minute movement snacks, it's time to bring everything together and make it actionable. How do you turn this tiny habit into a lifelong strategy that supports your health, longevity, and independence? The first principle is consistency. A 1-minute movement snack only works if it's done repeatedly. Think of it like brushing your teeth. Small daily actions compound over time. Even if you only do a few per day, over weeks, months, and years, you're building a body that's more resilient, metabolically flexible, and neurologically sharp. Next is integration. The beauty of a 1-minute snack is that it can fit into almost any routine. You can do it before meals, during work breaks, or while waiting for the coffee to brew. The key is to identify moments in your day where a short burst is practical and repeatable. Set cues, a timer on your phone, a note on your desk, or a reminder linked to an existing habit. These small anchors ensure you don't forget. Another principle is progression. As your fitness improves, you don't need to add more time. 1 minute is enough. What changes is intensity. Push a little harder, move a little faster. Add resistance if it's safe. Your body adapts quickly, so the challenge should evolve gradually to maintain the hormetic stress signal that drives longevity benefits. It's also important to view this in the context of your overall lifestyle. Movement snacks are powerful, but they work best alongside other foundational habits. Adequate sleep, nutrient-dense whole foods, stress management, and hydration. Think of movement snacks as the catalyst that amplifies the benefits of all these other practices. For example, improved insulin sensitivity from a 1-minute burst can make your body process the nutrients from a healthy meal more efficiently. Increased cerebral blood flow enhances focus and learning during your day. Small synergistic effects like this accumulate into significant health gains over time. Let's also talk about mindset. Many people avoid exercise because they feel they need to do it right or go all in. The 1 minute snack removes that barrier. It's not about perfection. It's about signaling your body that activity is expected and valued. This shift in perspective turns a seemingly trivial action into a powerful longevity intervention. Practical examples can make this clearer. Before breakfast, try climbing a flight of stairs as fast as safely possible. At your desk, do a set of 20 fast sit-to-stands from a chair while cooking. March in place or perform bodyweight squats during a timer countdown. During TV commercial breaks, do jumping jacks, step-ups, or push-ups. Each of these 1 minute moments activates the cardiovascular system, recruits muscle fibers, and triggers the cellular pathways associated with longer, healthier life. Over time, these small snacks accumulate. Research suggests that multiple brief bouts of activity throughout the day can produce equal or even superior benefits compared to a single, longer workout session. That's because your body is repeatedly exposed to short bursts of stress and then recovery, creating repeated stimuli for adaptation. The cumulative effect is improvements in VO2 max, insulin sensitivity, mitochondrial function, and neurological health. Finally, the most exciting part is accessibility. You don't need a gym, expensive equipment, or a perfect schedule. You only need awareness, intention, and 1 minute. This makes it a powerful tool for people of all ages, fitness levels, and lifestyles. Even someone in their 70s or 80s can gain meaningful benefits by performing safe, vigorous movement snacks appropriate to their abilities. So to recap, the 1 minute movement snack works because it leverages intensity over duration, activates critical longevity pathways, preserves muscle and brain function, improves metabolic health, and fits into a busy life. It's simple, effective, and sustainable. Small, repeated actions compound into big results over time. If you start today, just 1 minute, you're sending a message to your body, I value my health. I want to be strong, resilient, and sharp as I age. And remember, longevity isn't about drastic overhauls. It's about consistent, smart choices, 1 minute at a time. Start with a single minute today. Repeat it daily. And over weeks, months, and years, you'll likely see improvements, not just in how you feel, but in how long and well you live. That's the science-backed power of the 1 minute movement snack.